Ashe family, welcome back to another episode of My Unapologetic Perspective. This is the podcast we give our point of view on controversial topics from my experience, Black history, and now knowledge as African Americans. Black history presently lives in us so we can continue to excel into the future. It's one thing to know Black history. It's another thing to take advantage of what the people in Black history did for you. I am your host, Martre Baker Stevens, and to the right of me is Shaquan Battle.
Hello.
And to the right of him is Jerome Battle.
What's up?
Appreciate all the love and support we've been getting. We got close to 80 or over 80 hours of just information on YouTube from this podcast. And we appreciate all the love and support that we're getting. Means the world to us more than anything else. But let's get right into it. Where would you gentlemen like to start?
I guess we can start with a rest in peace with one of your favorite TikTok accounts. Flint City Councilman Eric Mays dies.
Yeah,
Passed away.
That's tough, man. That's tough to hear because Eric Mays was, man, hey, he was one of them ones.
Giving the business in the council meeting.
One of them type of politicians that you need in a council meeting. Rest in power to him. I got a movie review.
Come on.
Me, my wife, and my daughter went to go see the Bob Marley movie. Something my daughter wanted to see, and I was actually glad she wanted to see it because I wanted to see it too. And now the review, my honest opinion of it. What I liked about the movie is the acting was great. Number one, Kingsley Ben-Adir, somebody that we talked about on this podcast before. He did a great job as Malcolm X on One Night in Miami. Did a great job as Bob Marley. If his kid didn't play him in the movie, the next best option was Kingsley. He murdered that role. Lashana Lynch, great actress. Loved her in Woman King. Loved her again here as Rita Marley. The casting, the acting, phenomenal throughout the entire movie. Now, when it comes to biopics, especially music biopics, it's very difficult to do because you got an hour and 52-hour time frame to put so much information in. And you're trying to cover it in an entirety, in entire career or entire life in 2 hours. And it's just difficult to do. In a movie setting. And if you do a series, it's a lot easier because now you get maybe 10 episodes and you get 10 hours for season 1, right? One of the problems that I had with the Tupac movie was it was all over the place because they tried to time jump so much and put everything into 2 hours, and it was difficult to do. This movie from the beginning told you what specifically it was going to cover. And that's what I liked about it was before the movie comes on, Ziggy Marley says, hey, this is a tribute to my father. This is what the family wanted. This is the time frame we're going to do it in. The text that they show before the movie start, hey, this is the time frame we're going with. Political war in Jamaica breaks out into a civil war. Bob Marley wants to do the One Love Peace concert. It covers the 2 years he was in London after he was after the attempted assassination, recording the album Exodus. And then throughout the movie, you get flashbacks of his family, his upbringing, the flashbacks of his love story with Rita. And then they incorporated the music throughout the entire movie. Even if it wasn't in that 2-year time frame, they made references to it, right? He'll say a song lyric from one of the old albums. They would just put the music in the background. So they covered so much music within the movie that didn't necessarily need to be covered within the storyline. When I was watching, one of the problems that I had was the movie it made Bob Marley prophet-like. And then as I started to think, I was like, well, that's fine because most of his fans looked at him that way anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, but then later on it humanized them, showing the infidelity, the cancer, the white father that didn't want him, those type of things. Made a lot of references that I liked to the Marcus Garvey. He was reading Marcus Garvey most of the time, or quoting Marcus Garvey. And then for the people who, because I used to be like this too, for the people who say, well, they didn't cover this, they didn't cover that. If you want that, go watch the documentary. The movie was set out to be what the movie was set out to be. They captured that in that 2-year time frame that they were looking for. And for what the movie was and what they wanted to be, it was incredible. It was incredible. And advise everybody to go watch it.
Have you watched the what's the Malcolm X and Martin Luther King?
Not yet. I got it queued up on Hulu. I haven't watched it yet. I'll have a review of it maybe next week. I'll try to watch it this week. I did watch the Book of Clarence.
You like it?
I did. But I'm not gonna go into detail because I don't got time for Christians to put a bunch of Bible verses in my comments.
What you got?
What you got?
What you got? I got a story, but
Go ahead. Come on with it.
so well, for last month, right? Boogie come home and he said that it's a kid at school that's calling them monkeys. So the first thing I asked him is, hey, did you tell somebody? Did you let a teacher know? Yeah, we told the teacher, but at the time they had a substitute. And the substitute apparently was his grandma or something like that.
Oh.
So they said they told her, and this is how they feel, is nothing was done about it. So, okay. So he tells his mom calls up to the school. Don't know what happened with that. So Thursday, I'm at work. I get a text from Brittany to say, the school just called. We got to have a conversation with Jayceon. She was like, I'll call you on my lunch to let you know. So then I get another text from a parent to say, did the school call y'all about Jay? So I'm like, yeah, but, Brittany didn't give me any details. Just, should have called me on a lunch. So fast forward, she calls me, tells me that a kid called, the same kid that was calling the monkeys called one of our cousins that Jayceon hangs with nigger on the bus. So that was a couple days before this incident. So then she proceeds to tell me that day at school, the little boy on the playground called the other 3 kids a nigger. And the teacher had some concerns because they heard that those 4 kids was going to jump this one kid. So I'm like, all right. So all day is bothering me. So I called the school and was like, hey, can I speak to the principal? And they was like, well, she's outside, doing the car ride line. She'll call you when she come back in. So she calls me. I was like, hey, can you meet today? She was like, yeah, 3:15 is good. I said, okay, cool. 3:15. I called Jay first to get his side because I know how it is in school. They never ask the kid their side until the consequences is already. And I'll give you an example. If you show off or do anything in school, the teacher going to write you up. They're going to send a referral to the office. The principal reviews the referral, and he determines what your punishment going to be. When you're called to the office, he asks you, what's your story?
Mm-hmm. But everything's already decided.
The last time that I got wrote up in school, the principal asked me, what is your side? I said, my side doesn't matter because you already got my punishment on the referral. So my side don't even matter. So I called Boog, get his side. He tell me his side. So I get to the school and we go in and she's explaining to me what took place. So she's showing me this TikTok video where one of the kids made where it's the pictures of all 4 of the boys. And the caption said, if you call me an N-word one more time, we're going to fight you. So I said, okay. She said, and I talked to all 4 of the boys. They gave me their statement, and what they said that they was, one of the kids said that's what was going to happen. She said, and I had a conversation with the other kid who allegedly said that he said the N-word. I said, why do he get allegedly?
That's right.
She was like, I'm sorry. I said, you used the word allegedly for him, but you didn't use the word allegedly for the 4 black boys. Oh, I didn't? I said, no, you didn't. I said, so what you saying is you're giving him the leeway to say, okay, he may have said it. He may not have said it. I said, but you're taking these boys' word as a fact, but you're giving him leeway. So then the head principal come in, and she was like, she said, well, we talked to all of the boys, and, the boys said that they were tired of, the boy calling them the N-word. I said, look, I know what y'all see. I said, let's just be honest. We're looking at this through 2 different lenses. Y'all looking at it one way, I'm looking at it totally different. I said, the way that I'm looking at it, y'all will never be able to understand it. She said, well, the head principal was like, well, can I ask a question? And I don't want to overstep. I said, I know what you're about to ask me. And she was like, well, is it okay if I ask? I said, go ahead. She said, why is it, and I would never use it, but why is it you guys can use it, but we can't? I said, well, first, you will never be able to understand why it's not okay for y'all not to use it, because you're not black. I said, furthermore, when we use it, it's in terms of an endearment. We change the meaning of what it means to each other. I said, now, these boys is being bullied by being called the N-word. She said, oh, no. That's not bullying. Bullying is something that happens over continuous time. I said, what's a streak? She said, I'm sorry. I said, what is a streak? She said, that's when something keeps happening over. That's a form of bullying. You just said the same thing that I said. Oh, well, I was using the literal definition of bullying. I said, that's bullying. He's antagonizing these kids. And I said, again, I'm only telling you that the boys feel like that nothing's being done about it. I said, now look, they had the wherewithal to have a racial slur being called to them and going to tell a teacher.
That's right.
I said, so that alone should tell you they have common sense.
That's right.
I said, because, like I said, this could have went left. I said, and if it would have went left, that would have followed these 4 boys for the rest of their life. Right. While this kid get to go on about his life, nothing affected. That's right. That stigma might stay with him for a little while, that he likes to use the N-word. But what these 4 boys did to this one white boy is going to follow them for the rest of their life. Absolutely. And I said, I know y'all can't understand that because y'all looking at this as he's only calling them the N-word.
Want to protect the white.
Yeah, you're protecting him. And she was like, well, in the photos, they're throwing up gang signs. I said, so you tell me what sign that is right there. Oh, I don't know. I said, exactly. They don't know. And they're not gang signs. I said, that's a love symbol that they throwing up. That all kids put up. The 4. That just means 4 pockets full. Little baby's record label. That's what that means. But you don't know that. So you're instantly protecting this kid over here.
Any way they can.
Right. So, and I told her, I said, this is how I feel. Y'all are protecting this kid over here because y'all deemed that these 4 boys was going to fight him. So y'all trying to protect him. When he's the one that's antagonizing these 4 boys by calling them racial slurs.
Unfortunately, that's not why they're protecting them.
Well, yeah.
They're protecting them because those 4 boys are savages.
Right.
Right.
Because they see 4 black kids with dreads. That's what they see. They from their visual point, they see that's 4 black kids with dreadlocks. They're gonna do whatever they say that they were gonna do. Meanwhile, this kid over here, he might have said it, he might not have said it. You're giving him grace, but these kids don't deserve the same grace. And I let them know from the moment I walked in her office, I'm not just here for Bug. I'm here for all 4 of the boys. Now, granted, the one that posted it, he deserves whatever he should get because he shouldn't have posted that. I said, but now these other 3 has nothing to do with what this one kid posted. I said, but furthermore, I don't care what happens because their thing was, well, we can't tell you what the punishment is going to be for this kid over here. I don't care. I'm just letting you know that those 4 boys feel like the school is not doing anything about them being called racial slurs. So I said, now, next week, if the kid decide to call them a racial slur, what's going to happen?
Right.
because I know what y'all already gonna do. Y'all gonna use this incident, and you're gonna move this incident forward to the incident that happens next week, or the next time that he chooses to call them the N-word. Y'all gonna bring this incident right back up to say that that it was a threat that y'all was gonna fight this kid. Y'all gonna use that against him. So I said, moving forward, and she was like, "Well, let's be clear. What 4 kids are you talking about?" I said, "The 4 kids you just showed me in the TikTok video." Right. She was like, "Well, I want to be clear. Jason doesn't have anything to do with this." I said, "So why was his mom called then?"
That's right.
If he didn't have anything to do with anything, why was she called? Oh, I've been dealing with this since I got to school this morning. I said, "So why did Brittany get a call at 11 o'clock if you've been dealing with this since 8 o'clock? Okay. Oh, well, we didn't have a chance to talk to the other kid." I said, "Wait, I thought you said you talked to all the kids already." "Well, this happened during dismissal." I said, "Look, you just said it started this morning and then it happened at this. Which one is it?" So, I mean, and I was proud of myself of how I went in there and handled that situation, because I knew that they didn't think that I was going to come in there with, like, I know what words mean. And right. They were playing semantics with words. And they didn't think that, and the meeting only took 15 minutes. And for those 12 minutes, it was me talking. And it was the 3 minutes they was listening. So, like I said, I was just proud of the way that I went in there and handled that situation. Not for just my son, but for all 4 of the boys. And like I told them to end the conversation, we're talking about 4 boys who has great grades, who are amazing kids, who are amazing athletes, who, I said, and I bet y'all didn't know this, that they have to serve in the community all the way from Smith Mountain Lake all the way to the town of Bedford just to be able to play football. Oh, we didn't know that. I said, I know you don't know that. But we're talking about 4 kids who never get in trouble. I said, 4 kids that never get in trouble, and you wonder why, you never stop to think of why these 4 is in my office. Right. That means something. All of a sudden. Yeah, all of a sudden, that means something was triggered for them to have to come out of their comfort zone and say something, or you see something that's unusual that's not in their character. That means they were probably antagonized with something to make them not be who they normally are. That's right. And, you know, she made it clear that moving forward that, you know, it was squashed, but, you know, I know what's going to happen. And, you know, I had a long conversation with Jay about that. I had a long conversation with him about, you know, even though he wasn't the one that posted it, you have to be careful of what's posted on social media. Now, how the teachers them found that, I don't know. You know, but I know they're not going to tell me that, because they're going to say, well, we're not allowed to discuss that. That's fine. But like at the end of the day, this kid is doing something that's antagonizing these 4 boys, and you're protecting this one kid.
The biggest issue that I have with this is the teacher said it's squashed. This is something they're going to deal with for the rest of the school year. Not just, it may be squashed in elementary school. It's going to be magnified in middle school and in high school. This is something that they're going to have to deal with. The second part that I have a problem with is what you said, that you are happy with how you handled it. It's a shame that we can't even tell our kids how to handle it, because we're still adjusting on how to handle it as adults, on what is the solution to this. The third problem is, by the principal asking, why can y'all say nigga and we can't say nigga? We know the reason why. That's not even a conversation. The problem is, it wasn't even to the point where I'm sure the kid didn't ask, in what manner did you use it? Mm-hmm. Did you use it and say, what up, my nigga? Or did you use it in another form? So therefore, you already know there are 2 forms of the word. Right. And you already are on this person while you saying allegedly, and you know it's a problem because you know what the word means. Mm-hmm. Question is how does an elementary kid know what the word means? Right. And know what the definition and know what the differences is in it? It's because you know from an adult standpoint what the conversation is. You just don't want to address it. And the point of bringing up the TikTok video or the gang signs is to make it justifiable. Mm-hmm. So this doesn't become a thing. What we know what he did was wrong, but we have to even the playing field by saying the response was wrong. Therefore, nobody else takes this beyond this point.
Mhm.
Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's go. This is what the white community always does when it comes to racism. Let's sweep it under the rug.
Mhm.
He was wrong for saying it. They were wrong for how to respond it. But the response would have never been necessary if the initial conversation would have been had.
Right.
So those are the problems that I have with this topic. And it's no different. My daughter's in middle school, 7th grade. She came home and said, "Hey, it's Black History Month." We had kids laughing at stuff that they were being talked about in Black history. They were painting Malcolm X and Martin Luther King white and laughing about it. They got called to the hallway about it. They came back in laughing. Some of the teachers were snickering. And I told her, I'm like, "Hey, listen." She was like, she says something, and I'm like, "That's cool." But you're going to be, if you stand up for that and you say something about every person that has a racist remark, you're going to be talking for the rest of your life.
Yep.
I said, we have to understand that, yes, in America, we have freedom of speech. They have the right to paint Malcolm and Martin white if they want to. Put those people in the category where they belong.
Right.
And let it be, because if you take on this, you're never going to get any peace, because it's only going to get worse. Some of these people were friends with you in the elementary school. When you see what they are now, there's some people you are friends with now in the middle school. It's going to change when you get to high school, because the more and more their families start to have their principles put on them, the more and more the community start to see things, the more they get involved with politics and all this stuff and start to understand what's really going on. Some of the people that you call friends going to look at you that way, and everything is going to change for you. So it's difficult hearing these stories, because even as grown men and grown women, African Americans, we have a hard time dealing with it ourselves. That it's hard to give the right answer to our children to have to deal with.
And you're right. The thing is, and this is the irony of this, is that a part of my segment for this podcast was going to talk about this, something similar, which is, and I'm just going to speak from the heart. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of people saying we should stop talking about the past and about racism as if it doesn't exist, as if it never existed. Malcolm X was asked one time how African Americans react to racism and inequality in turning the other cheek. And Malcolm's response was, "I get a little excited when white people tell us how we should react to brutality and mistreatment, how we should react to unfairness and inequality, that they want to tell us about our reactions to it, but they never talk to the initiators. So they never get the talking to. It's always how we react, and then we get treated a certain manner, and how we act to how we being treated, how we react." And he said, "I get excited when the white man becomes so concerned about the Negro defending themselves. You dishonor the Negro of his intelligence by telling him not to defend themselves. You make the Negro go contrary to their own nature and to their own intelligence by telling them not to defend themselves." Why? Because it is human nature to defend yourself, especially when you are being wrong. It's human nature. But yet we have to tell our kids that so that they come home. Because if you defend yourself, you could end up in a box. So when we go through these things, I'm with Malcolm. I get a little excited because we're forced to do something that we shouldn't be doing. We're forced to go contrary to our nature. We're forced to go contrary to our own intelligence, which is never going to be good. And the reason is because white America continues to try to convince us we're not victims. As Baker always said, to allow us to be considered victims, they have to recognize us as human beings. And they refuse to do that. But yet they keep putting you in a situation to be victimized. But yet you can't say anything because you can't be a victim.
You have to acknowledge the abuse.
Exactly. So how do you win? You can't. It's systemic. You raised the question about the white kid using the word nigger and maybe not really understanding the content of it. I don't buy it. And the reason the teachers didn't ask them, how did you mean it, is because they already
knew.
know.
Rick's already know.
It's systemic.
Yeah.
The reaction from the black kid shows you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's systemic. They can't question him about it. You know why he said it.
Yeah.
It happens in your household. You've seen it before with your family. So why would you question them about something you already know and have the child expose you? Or you don't know? You don't use it at home? Because then they got to lie. Because obviously they use it at home themselves. It's systemic. You know, and I'll tell you how they brand us. And I'm going to use that word because it's going to play into something else. Something I was thinking about when I'm looking at sports now, and I see all the different names. Like I'm watching exhibition Major League Baseball. And the announcers keep forgetting that the Cleveland Indians are no longer the Cleveland Indians, they're the Guardians. And they keep forgetting that. And during football season, you had a couple of announcers kept calling the Washington Redskins instead of the Washington Commanders. I want to talk about the fleur de lis symbol, which is the symbol that's on the Saints helmet. And that symbol, beginning in 1974, prior to the Civil War, was black codes with set regulations adopted in Louisiana, other French colonies, and southern states, meant to govern the state's slave population. Those rules included branding enslaved Africans with the fleur de lis as punishment for running away. So any captured enslaved African would be taken before a court, and the sentence would be branded on one shoulder with this symbol. For repeat offenders, he or she would be branded again somewhere else, but with another brutality added, such as their hamstrings would be cut. This symbol has roots in the French Revolution, and like other symbols, was used as a mark of supremacy, white supremacy. Some compare the symbol to that of the Confederate flag or even the swastika. Even for those that may not agree with that comparison, I think a fair comparison would be in the case of changing names and symbols as it relates to those professional teams that Native Indians didn't like those connotations with those names. Why not for African Americans? As in the case of the New Orleans Saints, that still have the symbol. Why didn't they do that for us?
And the Pelicans.
The Pelicans. You know, so I this took me back to I was on the few episodes I talked about why does white America hate black Americans so much? And I'm still asking that question. And I came across something that gave another reason as why. And there could be many answers to the question. And we've offered a few on this podcast. And now I have another one. The reason they hate black so much, we're the only non-white people who cannot be deported. You can't get rid of us. See, if a Mexican do something you don't like, you send them back to Mexico.
Yeah.
Right? A Haitian do something you don't like, you send them back to Haiti. You know? If somebody of Arabian descent do something you don't like it, you send them back to one of the Middle East countries. If a Chinese person does something you don't like, you deport them back to China. You can't do that with us. And the thing is they destroyed that connection to be able to do that with slavery.
Yeah.
See, we're disconnected from Africa. We're only connected to the United States, so they can't deport us. So because of that, what can they do to get rid of us? Well, they've already came up with a few things. They tried slavery, right? That didn't work. You tried black codes. That didn't work. You tried mass incarceration. That was working like a motherfucker, right? You did away with jobs and put us in the projects to where the black men left their families. That's another good way to destroy us, right? And then you start police brutality. You kill us. You do all these things to try to get rid of us because you can't deport us. We're not going anywhere.
For sure.
And at the end of the day, we talked about this on a few podcasts. White America slowly, not that wide gap of the majority anymore in the United States. That gap is decreasing. And they don't want that, but they can't get rid of us. So they got to deal with us. So this is how they deal with us. They continue to put us in the box, devaluing us, for men emasculating us. In this case, with the 4 kids and the 1 white student, still showing where the white kids are superior and more important and believable. That's important.
Yeah.
Believable than the black kids. It's still happening every day. And we're forced to deal with it, but yet they want us to turn the other cheek. Something that Deion Sanders used to always say is they always want us to take the high road. I don't know the address. I don't know the address to the high road. Sometimes you cannot go contrary to human nature. You cannot. Sometimes you got to fight. You know, I once heard Malcolm X. I think it was a speech right after he met with Martin Luther King, because there was still a lot of dissension, and I realized that both of them were looking at two different standpoints. Both want the same thing, but they were looking at it from two different perspectives. We can't ignore that. Malcolm once said that some people think that choice determines destination. He said, I don't think so. Force determines destination. Your destiny is determined by how much you're willing to force the issue instead of turning the other cheek. Do you think we would have continued to get what we wanted from the government if we took the nonviolent approach? If what we were fighting for civil rights wasn't already a part of what we should have been getting by the Constitution, right? If we were asking for something outside of what we should already been getting, you think we would have got that with nonviolence?
No.
Absolutely not. And we're not going to get anywhere if we have to continue to turn the other cheek. We're not. We're not.
I had something else, but I'll just hold off with that because another topic I had kind of coincides with this a little bit. So let's just stick with it. When you talk about principals and teachers, anybody in a position of authority, I believe they have a hard time dealing with some African American kids. There's been research that's been shown that they are more likely to try to put black children on ADHD medicine and those type of things, move them to other classrooms, put them in different alternative schools to try to remove them from the other children. And I believe a lot of that becomes from teachers just not wanting to deal with black children. They rather not do that. And whenever I speak at a school, which I'm going to tomorrow to Bedford Middle School, I'll bring up Marvin Collins. Marvin Collins was a teacher. I want to say it was in New York. I got to go back to my notes, but she got tired of them just removing black children from her classroom and said these kids aren't up to this standard. They're not meeting the requirements, and just removing them from the school. So she took all of those kids and she created her own school. Give me all of the kids that y'all say are problems, all of the kids you say aren't testing this high. Give me all of those kids. And those kids were scoring 5 times higher in 1 year underneath her school than they were in the general public school. And it just shows you that when you have somebody that can relate and care, it changed the thing for the child. And when I look at that, even in the sports aspect, when George Karl and Carmelo's beef, right? Melo came out and talked about how when he first got to Denver, that George Karl came to him and said that he think that he was overrated. Kenya Martin talked about at halftime him almost coming to blows and fighting George Karl. George Karl in his book talked about how Melo and Kenya Martin came from poor black communities and come from single parent households to where they never learned how to be a man. And it just shows you that there are some people who have no idea how to connect with those type of children without thinking yourself better than them and what you expect of them. Like there are certain, I'm not even going to say his name. There was a local coach that I thought had the same type of mindset. And some of these older white people in these authoritarian positions don't know how to teach black children, coach black children, communicate with black children, or communicate with the adults of those black children. That's right. And I believe that's a problem in our society. What are y'all thoughts about that?
No, absolutely. You know, it's one of those things where it's always going to go back to this one word, systemic. You can't do something that you've never been taught to do or doesn't come up at your dinner table in your household. I'll give you a great example. One of the problems that I've always had with SOL testing is that most of those questions are things that you don't learn in the classroom.
Right.
They're things that you would normally learn sitting at home if you ate dinner as a family, mom and dad, and they would discuss certain things and you would hear it, right? Well, Black households, you usually don't have that setting. Mom and dad don't typically eat dinner with their kids. Mm-hmm. Either mom is, she's a single mom and working multiple jobs, or she's just getting home and now she's got to cook dinner. So she feeds the kids. Then she washes dishes. She checks the homework. She doesn't have time to sit down and eat with the kids. And so the kids never have an opportunity to hear certain things. Now, part of it is our own fault because we also have what we have where kids are put to a different area when adults are talking. Right? Mm-hmm. So when adults are talking, kids go to your room. You don't need to hear what we're talking about. So they never hear certain words, terminologies, verbiage, whatever. They never hear those things. So they don't know what it means. So when you take these SOL tests, white kids have already been exposed to some of those words. If you ask at least in this area, if you have a kid and you say, hey, turn off the faucet, I mean, what the fuck is a faucet? Right? Mm-hmm. Well, they might say spigot. They might say some other word other than faucet. So it's things like that I think the SOL testing is really not a true standard that included Black people. Mm-hmm. But again, goes back to that word systemic.
Right.
You think that was by chance? Absolutely not. That's part of the process. Is the standard never included Black people.
Yeah, the standardized testing was created, I think, by a German or it might have been a French or a German who basically wanted to separate and show that Black people weren't equal to white people.
Absolutely. And now you have these standards of learning in our school districts, and it's killing our kids. Mm-hmm. So systemic, you're not going to get away from that. So the things that we see, but it's taught. Let me give you one more example. I know I've said this on many podcasts before, and I'll repeat it just for the sake of argument, is I do not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem. I do not pledge allegiance to the flag, any flag, mm-hmm. for all that matters, but first and foremost, that of America. Why would I pledge of allegiance to a country or with a country that does not make the same pledge to me or those that look like me? Why would I stand up for this country when this country won't stand up for me or people that look like me? We see that. We're just talking about it. They don't stand up for us. Mm-hmm. They stand against us. Mm-hmm. Every chance they get, they stand against us. So why would I stand up for that? James Baldwin, and doing this podcast for the last couple of years, I realized that a lot of things that I read as a kid was interesting, but it didn't register. Mm-hmm. But something did start and register now when I go back and read. James Baldwin once said, it came as a shock that what you learned as a child regarding the pledge, that you learned to recite it, and you didn't have any clue that it was not reciprocated. Mm-hmm. But you learned it because you had to, and you believed it because you were a kid and you were told this is what you had to do. And you accepted that as the truth. Just as you learned about Gary Cooper killing off the Indians, and you were rooting for Gary Cooper.
Yes.
Not knowing that you were the Indians.
You were the Indians, yes, sir. Shout out to James Baldwin.
Shout out to James Baldwin. And that's kind of where we are now, is that in school, you learn all these great things about white Americans, very little about Black Americans. We're always talked about in a negative sense: slavery, ugly, unemployment, lack of education. All those things are what you hear about Blacks throughout, K through 12. And you believe it. And it comes to you as a shock when you find out you had all these great black people that you never learned about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the system. That was designed for you to do that. So white America is okay with you learning about your heritage from a negative standpoint, that you were enslaved. We owned you. We whipped, beat, killed, separated, destroyed your culture, your connection to Africa. We destroyed that. That's okay for you to know that. But what you will not know is that it happened at the hands of white people, because we don't want them to feel bad. So what you talked about is part of that systemic culture. So to assume that it's going to change just because we don't confront it, or even to assume that it's going to change even if you do confront it, still says that it's systemic. And we have to accept that. So when people tell us everything's not about color, fuck you. It is.
It is.
It's part of the system. How can it not be about color?
Right.
It's
and
part
that's
of the system.
And that's one of the reasons why we have to begin to talk about these things, because people will not understand how race plays into everything in America. Even with the Super Bowl, every year they say, what is the black national anthem? We only have one national anthem. Why do
That's right.
Why is it
Why
still
do we need
separate?
another one?
Well, you don't understand that, number one, your national anthem, as we've talked about on this podcast, was not for us. It was not made with us in mind. Actually, it was made with us in mind because it allowed you to keep people on the plantation.
That's right.
Second thing is, when it comes to that song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, it became the black national anthem because during that time of segregation and in schools, when y'all talk about the Pledge of Allegiance, that was the black schools' Pledge of Allegiance. You had to memorize that song. You had to sing that song, that verse. Some schools, you had to know all of the verses.
That's right.
Those were things that you had to learn growing up in the black school. When we talk about integration, y'all took integration and said, hey, you take on everything that we do. Just come in. We're not incorporating anything that you used to do. That's not what true integration is. So when we talk about the black national anthem, it's because we never agreed to your national anthem. That's right. So we have to sing something separate because what you have does not apply to us.
Absolutely.
And that's what that's about.
We had the elementary school I went to, R.S. Payne in Washington, D.C. We had to learn what we call now the black national anthem. But we had to learn that song, both verses.
And I said that here in the 4th grade, we had to learn the first verse of the national anthem.
Yeah.
That was a project.
Yep.
And
You had to stand up in front of the class and recite it word for word.
And we used to sing Christopher Columbus.
And the thing
Sailed
is,
the ocean
you
blue.
believed it because
Yeah.
you didn't know any different.
Yeah.
You believed it. They wanted you to believe it. And it came to your shock when you found out that it wasn't true.
Yeah.
One last thing that I have, I'll just get to it. When we talk about, it's a difference between appropriation of music and appreciation of music. Iggy Azalea was the definition of appropriation of music. You know, when you heard Iggy Azalea rap, you seen her in the music videos, the way she dressed, the way she, like, you was like, okay, maybe she's from the black community. She might have some black in her. She knows the black culture. Then when she got in interviews, it was like, wait a minute, where the hell is she from? Then you look at, oh, she's from Australia. And you realize that she was putting on an act, a facade to look like a black woman, sound like a black woman, and basically appropriate black culture. And for some reason, white America thought this was what Beyonce was doing. Beyonce doesn't need to appropriate anything. She has her own following. She can do whatever she want to do. If her Southern roots kick in and she wanted to make music that captures her Southern heritage and traditions, she 100% can do that. You know, most people want to compare this to hip hop. Let's not even compare it to hip hop. Let's compare it to R&B. When white artists come over to R&B and they not singing, they singing, boy, do we embrace them.
That's right.
Boy, do we embrace them. They win awards. They do all of the things. Boy, actually, if you turn on 100.1, every other R&B artist is probably going to be white.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And we take on that. You're in here making the music. Cool. We cool with it.
That's right.
You would never hear if a country singer decided to do an R&B album and it sounds good, we all with it. You know what I'm saying? But I think white America has got confused, as they always do, on the history, right? If you Google the origins of country music, it's going to say the origins of country music started in the Southern Appalachian with fiddle players in the late 1910s. And incorrect.
That's right.
The origin of country music starts with the banjo, which originates in Africa from Africans that were captured and then brought over to America, and they brought the instrument with them. Thomas Jefferson, y'all love Thomas Jefferson so much. Go back and read some of his writings. In 1785, he said the instrument of the banjo came from Africa, and it is for the African captives, and this is what they normally use and play with. He said, these are the only people that I've ever seen be able to play this instrument. Joel Sweeney, who was a white performer who would do blackface all the time. And he popularized the banjo, but he had to learn it on the plantation in Virginia from people that were enslaved. And what did he do? He learned it, went and wrote a book about it, how to play it, and sold the damn book on how to take lessons and to be able to do it. T-Top Payne was a legend in Louisiana. And he was the only teacher for the country singer Hank Williams, who was a legend. He taught him how to write songs. He taught him how to play the chords. Musician like Leslie Riddle helped the Carter family transcribe Negro spirituals so they can be able to create what is called bedrock of country music. Virginia's official state song from the 1940s up into 1998 was written by a black man. Carry me back to old Virginia, written by James A. Bland, a black man. So when you go back to segregation, there were white country singers and black country singers, and they still did records together. Country has never been just white.
That's right.
It has always been something that has been shared between black people and white people. The music is not white traditions. Southern roots is not white tradition. When y'all was in the South, trust me, we was right there with you. We couldn't leave.
That's right.
We were right there with you. Part of the concept of country music is the lyrics is about storytelling. It's about talking about depression and oppression and what I've been through and what's going with me.
Like the blues.
Just like the blues and just like the Negro spirituals. So now Beyonce may have been thinking, okay, they're going to accept me, which they did after it was a public outcry. But we can't expect us to go into those spaces and be open with, be let in with open arms. But what we can do in the black community is say, hey, this is a part of our thing, right? If we want a black award shows, we'll have a country award for what we do. So that idea that what she did was appropriation, 100% false.
That's right. Question.
What's that?
Since the videos and the sound bites are coming out about back in the day with Eminem and nigga this and nigga that, and how you feel about that? Because I know right now, what's his name in Roanoke is going, I told you.
The sound bites is coming out, but this was not something that
it's not
many
new.
people not new.
But it's coming out more prevalent now because the question is, why does he get a pass? Because obviously a lot of rappers coming out saying, I don't really give a fuck.
Yeah.
He get a pass with me. And that's kind of what a lot of rappers are saying, is that they could care less. Is that fair? I know we gave Mark Wahlberg a pass. He got a pass because he did the same thing with Asians.
I don't think it's necessarily a pass. I don't condone it, number one. And I remember when he first did a song calling black women niggas and bitches, there was an outcry. It just wasn't like the internet wasn't what it is today.
Right.
If it came out back then on the internet, it would have been something that he would have had to deal head on. But he could navigate around it back then. My biggest question goes to the people who are around him. Dr. Dre, all of them, all of these people who seen and heard him, heard these records before everybody else heard them and thought it was okay to put out. Goes back to what you said the last episode that Dr. Dre has never said anything pro-black because Eminem made him a lot of money.
That's
so
right.
Of course he's not going to stop dealing with Eminem.
That's right.
So that's my biggest problem is what are the black people doing around him? I expect it from Eminem.
Yeah, that's right.
I have an expectation from some from not everybody, but if a white person comes out and say, nigga, I'm not shocked.
That's right.
I'm not shocked. I'm more shocked at the people that's been around Eminem that allowed this to happen. But I believe he got a pass is because he did a lot for the culture after that. But on the flip side, he did a lot for black artists where he can say, I can do this because I've done this for 50 Cent on, Royce on, D12 on,
right.
all of these good people. I made them, so I have the right to do what I want to do. So you can understand the backlash of black artists, and that shouldn't be. My question goes to those people, Dr. Dre, 50 Cent, all of those people who are from that camp. How do you allow this?
Yeah.
I think for me, not so much mad at it because I've seen where Eminem now has stood up for black people.
Right.
Has, went at Trump. I'll say this. He know how to weaponize his fan. He know how to use his fan base. He know how to use his platform. And I do feel like a lot of times when it needs to be said by a white person, he's the one that it needs to be, that needs to say it because of the fan base that he has, the platform that he has in hip hop. So that's why I'm not gonna hold him to something back then that I see he has now changed.
Yeah, I don't think he got a pass. I think if it's systemic for us, it's systemic for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He was doing what he was taught as part of the system. Because he was also part of the system. He was on the other side of the system, but it's still the same system. So he was doing what he was taught. Most people don't change. Most people, when they learn the truth, they continue. That's why it's about choice now, right? It becomes a choice to continue to be part of that system. He made a choice that he wanted to be a part of that system anymore. And he even talked about why he did it. I think he had a black girlfriend that cheated on him or something like that, and he went crazy. But not making excuses for him, but that's all he knew. He was part of the system too. But being a part of the hip hop culture, which is a part of the black culture, he learned the system is wrong. The system is wrong. Now you can't come out and you're nobody and come out and say the system is wrong. So what you do is you try to change. You become different, and then you can help people that you know are on the other side of the system, which is what he did. So nobody's giving him a pass, but you can't hold them accountable only for the mistakes that he made if you're not going to say, okay, he learned.
Right.
He learned from his mistakes, right? Just like we all make mistakes. You learn from them. Doesn't matter whether it's racially motivated or not. Mistake is a mistake. You learn from it. You get better. You try not to do it again.
Yeah.
So I don't think he got a pass. I think he learned and decided he didn't want to be a part of that system.
What we should have did was made him go back, research Marcus Garvey, watch Spike Lee, watch a Spike Lee movie, and then come back, and then we'll think about reinstating you. That's what we should have did.
Yeah, I think